Alright, so just starting out, we have all the pieces laid out. We have went ahead and put the filter on here onto the intake pipe. Got that there. Coupler for the throttle body to the intake. It's got a reducer in it as well. Some protective pieces that basically help the guard not, be as sharp and not bore holes in anything. Of course, we have the two pieces of the guard, the top cover, and the actual piece itself, the heatsink itself. We have a cap line that we're going to need for the sound resonator pipe, and then I went ahead and got this. You're supposed to plug it up for a manual transmission. If you have an automatic transmission, you need this hose, connects there, and it goes, I'm not sure exactly where, perhaps, I don't know, I don't do automatics. So, alright, so let's go ahead and get the old stuff out and in with the new. Alright, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a 10mm socket wrench. You're going to need an extension. Doesn't exactly matter how long, but I found a 12-inch made things a lot easier. A 5mm Allen key, some thread lock, Phillips head screwdriver, and a flathead screwdriver if you have a little bit of difficulty getting some of the hoses off, and then some pliers will help to get some of the clamps off as well. Alright, coming up. Pop the hood. Alright, first things first, let's get the old intake out. Alright, so we got this 10mm, this back here, which is 10mm, and we got that already popped off there. So, got this here loosened up, that's to go to the throttle body, so that'll come off in a second as well. This piece in here, make sure that you get that taken off. That's your intake air temperature sensor. You're going to need that sensor for later to put it on the other intake. This line here, it's got quite a bit of slack, but it's clipped onto the air intake box, so make sure that you get that off there. And then of course we have these 4 pop clips. We got those out, so then that just comes apart real easy, not difficult at all. I went ahead and took the cover off the engine and used that to hold all my screws and everything so I don't lose anything. Alright, so as you can see, kind of resistive. Ram air comes through here, down, U-turn up, comes to the filter, 90-degree through in here, and then of course into the engine. So it's where you're going to see a lot of your torque increases there. Alright, ram air's out, 10mm bolts out, 10mm bolt loosened here from back there, taking that out. This 10mm, or I just used a screwdriver for this one, loosened this hose clamp, popped it off. This one was kind of really hard to do. And then now this whole piece will just wiggle and come right out. Alright, now the last thing you'll need to do is make sure to take off this intake air temp. Just 10mm. Loosens up real easily once you get that cracked off. Unscrews, make sure that you save it, don't lose it. And then this will just kind of pop right off. Boom. There you go. There's your sensor. Alright, now we just gotta put it back on to our new intake. Same gasket's gonna be used. And that goes in there. So you don't want to crank it down too tight. Just enough so that it's nice and snug. 2 more screws that I missed. This whole bracket actually needs to come out. Alright, now the bracket's removed. You're going to need these 2 screws for later, but you don't need the bracket. Alright, now one last one. You're definitely going to need your extension for this. You want to remove this here, this ground. Now the new box is going to sit on top of this point. You're going to want to make sure that you pull out this screw, and then you're going to just put it back in once you get the plate in there. Alright, now we got to install this. It's kind of tricky, don't know which way to orient. It goes this way, so the hole is going to face back towards the passenger, assuming you're in an American drive car and everything's not reversed. So we're going to go ahead and place this. This goes in like this, got to go around the brake fluid, and that sits in just like that. Now make sure that you're going to need the filter to be in there. I have the filter on the intake pipe, I got to take it off and put it in there before, because you won't be able to fit the filter through once everything's bolted in place. Alright, here's one thing, make sure you don't forget this. This is a little rubber silicone sleeve, and it goes on the very bottom of your heat shield, so definitely don't forget that. Alright, here's where these ratchets come in really handy. It's very difficult to see down there. You can see the silver just a little bit. But basically we're just trying to get that screw in. And it's in, and we're just tightening it down now. Make sure you have your filter in there. And also there's a wire loom back there. Don't try and route the airbox around that, just simply bolt it over it, and it'll fit right under in like a little groove on the frame weld. And then once it's all screwed in, you're good. Now taking the 2 screws from this bracket that we took off of the headlight, or not the headlight, but near the headlight assembly, the mounting points. Alright, there we go. Alright, so now make sure that, something I didn't show, this is a protective ring here, goes around the steel, just to make sure that the vibrations don't bore a hole in your intake pipe, which would suck and basically negate the filter. Now of course we have this cap here, we're just going to throw this vinyl cap right over there, and since of course there's no pressure there, it doesn't really matter, but that's just to cap that off. Alright, last but not least, we got to get the piping set up and the hoses, and that's everything. And of course we want the Injen logo facing outward because that looks nicer. So this pipe fits right through here. Once again, Injen logo facing out, got to show it off. Set your filter so that it's not binding on your pipe. And of course be careful with your sensor there, you definitely don't want to damage it. I put the bigger side towards the throttle, or the smaller side towards the throttle body. It's like maybe a millimeter smaller. I don't think it really matters. Got this in here. Gonna leave the filter off just to get this all lined up. Alright, that side's lined up. Now I'm just gonna pop the filter on here. Alright, definitely a two-handed job. Got it in though. Just gonna kind of push the water reservoir a little bit out of the way. Don't have to unbolt anything, just stretching some rubber here. Alright, there's our intake sensor. Just barely clears, kind of makes me slightly uncomfortable, but I'm going to try and rotate it a little bit in a moment to try and get everything straightened up for good clearance. Just got to hook this hose up here and tighten everything down. Right, so now we got to put our cover on. So goes this way, these vents go back, engine facing this way. It's going to go right there. Now we're going to go ahead and put that in. Just a little bit, just a drop. And we're going to go ahead and install it right over here. Make sure to reconnect this clip for the intake air temperature. Boom, that's in. And my one complaint about this is that right here, this piece of metal, it rubs on this clip. So I'll probably end up putting a piece of foam in there or something, but it's probably my one thing about it. And then the last thing to do here would be put this on. Now, of course, remember, make sure to have this on there already. That's just going to keep it from getting worn down and getting a hole in it. Alright, holes all line up. Alright, it seems like this piece here, this ram air intake, is kind of pulling this metal forward a little bit, and that's good. That kind of eases my worry about that clip in the back there. Alright, and that's pretty much everything. So, double check, make sure we tightened everything. We got our cap on, we got our other cap on. This is tight, this is tight. Clamps on here. Intake air temperature sensor, that's plugged in there. Housing's good. Went ahead and thread locked all these three. These two bolts are all tightened up. Third bolt down there doesn't interfere with the ground and is tightened up. Of course, our air filter, we tightened that up earlier too, but always good to double check, and it is. And then the front intake is all put back on. So that's the whole install there. Just got to put that cover back on. Alright, so this is the full install and everything for the 3.8 2013 Genesis Coupe. So here's everything that you should be left over with after the install. You've got that bracket that you removed. You got the first 2 screws that took off the mount here, and the one that went to here, which was originally mounted back here. So that's what you're going to be left with. Alright, now it's time to go for a test drive.